welcome to this week's news bulletin from the Christian Institute. A Christian bed and breakfast owner has appeared in court after a gay couple sued her for damages, claiming that they suffered discrimination. The case began in 2010 when Susanne Wilkinson refused to allow Michael Black and John Morgan, who were not in a civil partnership, to share a double room at her Swiss B&B in Buckinghamshire. James Dingerman's QC, representing Mrs Wilkinson, denied that there had been any discrimination. He said it was against his client's beliefs for unmarried people to share a bed under her roof, adding that this is protected by the Equality Act 2010 and the Human Rights Act 1998. He also pointed out that the mother of four would have been happy to provide the couple with single beds, but none were available. Mrs Wilkinson said, "All we ever wanted was to be able to live and work in keeping with our faith. It affects every area of our life, including our home and our business. Surely there is room for that in modern British life." Mrs Wilkinson's case is being supported by the Christian Institute's Legal Defence Fund. The judge's decision is expected within 2 weeks. A mother who aborted her baby days before he was due has been sentenced to 8 years in prison at Leeds Crown Court. Sarah Catt from Yorkshire had purchased drugs from the internet which can induce labour. She claimed that the boy was stillborn and had buried him, but no evidence of the child has ever been found. Passing sentence, Mr Justice Cook said, "The child in the womb here was so near to birth that in my judgment all right-thinking people would consider this offence more serious than manslaughter or any offence on the calendar other than murder," adding, "What you have done is rob an apparently healthy child, vulnerable and defenceless, of the life which he was about to commence." While acknowledging that Catt faces heavy legal sanctions, pro-life organisation Life commented that this case illustrates the confusion in the way the law approaches the value of unborn human life and the supposed right to choose an abortion. Green councillor Christina Summers, who defied her party's support for redefining marriage, has been expelled from the local Green group on Brighton and Hove City Council. Last week we told you that a disciplinary panel had met to recommend Mrs Summers' expulsion because she had voted against lobbying the government on the issue. Mrs Summers, who is a Christian, says she was accountable to God above any political party. She will now sit as an independent councillor after Rob Shepherd, speaking on behalf of Brighton and Hove Green Party, confirmed Mrs Summers would no longer represent his party. But Mrs Summers is taking advice from the Christian Legal Centre and says she will appeal the decision. The Parliament of Australia has overwhelmingly rejected attempts to legalise gay marriage in 2 decisive votes. MPs voted against redefining marriage by 98 votes to 42, and a similar measure was defeated in the Australian Senate by 41 votes to 26. Prime Minister of Australia Julia Gillard was personally opposed to redefining marriage, but she allowed her Labour Party members to vote according to their conscience. The vote in Australia comes as former Conservative Minister Anne Widdecombe urged David Cameron to drop his plans for gay marriage. She said that Mr Cameron does not need gay marriage to be a battleground at the next elections, and allying himself with Miliband and Clegg will upset his own voters. A new consultation asking for the public's views on 3-parent embryos has been launched by the Human Fertilisation and Embryology Authority. Those in favour say that allowing 3-parent babies could eliminate mitochondrial disease. Mitochondria are cell structures whose primary function is to supply a cell with energy. In effect, they turn sugar and fatty acids from food into the energy-carrying molecule ATP. But critics argue that it would be wrong to play around with the building blocks of human life. Josephine Quintavalli of the Comment on Reproductive Ethics campaign group said, "This is not about curing disease in an existing human being. It is creating a new kind of embryo, and the alterations you have made will pass on to future generations." And a coalition of pro-life supporters have said the success of the Paralympics shows that our law, which allows disabled babies to be aborted any time up to birth, should be scrapped. In a letter to the Daily Telegraph, the campaigners argue that terminating pregnancies because of disabilities is a form of eugenics. Eugenics is the belief that we could improve society by allowing only certain types of people to be born. The letter states, "Killing people with disabilities rather than striving to support and care for them is contrary to the high principles of medicine." and the campaigners used the Paralympics as an example of the glaring contradiction caused by the current law. They say we become full of compassion once the baby is born, despite it being legal for a disabled child to be aborted at up to 40 weeks. The campaigners want the government to restrict the 1967 Abortion Act and promote research into disabilities. And finally, Britain's longest survivor of locked-in syndrome has used her first television interview to tell of her passion for life. Christine Waddell from County Durham has had the syndrome, which leaves sufferers conscious but paralysed for 15 years. It is the same condition as Tony Nicholson had. He campaigned unsuccessfully for doctors to be allowed to actively end his life. Christine communicates using a special system that works by moving her eyes and enjoys keeping in touch with friends through Facebook. Speaking through her carer Carol, she told the BBC's Look North programme that she has much to live for and hopes for a full recovery.
After 8 years, I noticed my toes moving, and I just thought that if that can happen, anything can happen. I've always believed I will recover, just because I totally believe in myself and I really want it.
She's an inspiration to me. I just think she's a wonderful lady. How she can, after 15 years, and still laugh and carry on. It's just amazing.
Well, that's all for this week. For more information and regular updates on all of our stories, plus much more, visit our website at christian.org.uk. Until next time, goodbye.